Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a sloppy sports and entertainment talk show about the New York Giants, the New York Mets, movies, television, comedy, and a whole lot more. It's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the Real Cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a plump and furry Irish Italian American who graduated from a Catholic high school but isn't Catholic, and a college known for producing doctors and lacrosse players, and didn't become either one of those. Instead, I'm a blogger, vlogger, podcaster. I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child, I'm a mother, I'm a sinner, I'm a saint, but do not feel the same. Is that how that song goes? I don't know. You can leave me a voicemail, 862-BIT-1986. That's 862-BIT-1986. You can also text that number if you're feeling fingery. Subscribe to Giant Mess on YouTube. You just search for Real Cinch or go to youtube.com/Neal Lynch. Go to my blog, it's neallynch.com, NEALLYNCH. Hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/giantmess. On Twitter and Instagram as Real Cinch, that's REALCINCH. And don't forget to subscribe to Giant Mess wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, up on the Spotify. So today's episode, what the hell are we talking about? We're not talking about TV or movies. And there's an embargo on a lot of the stories that I've accumulated over the past 2 weeks. We didn't have an episode last week, and I did some stuff, but I'm not going to talk about it until 14 days are up. So that should give you a hint as to what we did. But no TVs, no movies, no real life stories, because that's been embargoed. You have to wait 14 days to tell you those stories. We will be talking about the Mets and the Giants. For the Mets, we'll be talking about the passing of the franchise, Tom Seaver, at the age of 75. I'm going to react to the moves that we made, that Brodie Van Wags made at the trade deadline. Picking up Miguel Castro, Todd Frazier, and Robinson Chirinos. Anthony DeComo from MLB.com gave us 3 numbers that tell the Mets story of 2020, which are pretty insightful, and that should give you some insights as to... They're insightful and they give you insights. Jesus Christ. And we'll finish Mets talk with some playoff odds for Los Metros. What do we need to do down the stretch in order to make the postseason? We are the best 20-24 baseball team in the history of the earth. There, I said it. We'll also finish up this abbreviated, hopefully, podcast with Giants talk about the New York Football Giants. Cut day has come and gone. Joe Judge and the front office had to get down the roster down to 53 men, and they have done that. There were a couple surprise cuts. Ryan Connelly for one, Corey Coleman for another. We traded for a former third-round draft pick in 2018. We also signed Logan Ryan, former Titan and former Patriot. And we'll finish up with a look at the depth chart that has been released. Is it official? Is it unofficial? I don't know. I don't care. And we'll give a sneak, little tiny preview of the Week 1 game against the Steelers. The NFL is here, folks. I'm watching the end. It's the fourth quarter of the Chiefs Texans game. The Chiefs are laying the smackdown on the Houston Texans. I didn't think it would be, the spread was 9 last time I checked it. I took the Chiefs money line, and I didn't think that Houston would get blown out of the water like this. And I'm surprised to see fans in the stands. It's limited capacity. It's something like they allowed, I think it holds something like 80,000, and they allowed in 50,000, something like that. But I did not see this kind of beat down coming. So yeah, I took the Chiefs money line, but also parlayed it with the Ravens money line and the Colts money line. The Ravens are taking on the Browns and are favored by either 6.5 or 7.5, maybe even 8. And the Colts are favored by a touchdown, I believe, over the Jaguars. Colts are the visitors in that contest. The Jaguars, for all intents and purposes, are tanking full on for Trevor Lawrence. So I don't see them putting up much of a fight. They release Leonard Fournette, and Fournette just talks mad smack about them on the way out. They had another player got released or traded that was talking shit about the organization. So the Jags are in a bad place. I also took the Colts in I signed up for way too many pick'ems and survivor pools. I'm in like 18 different survivor pools and pick'ems, but I've picked the Colts pretty much across the board as my week 1 survivor. So, yeah, that should be, that should work out in my favor. And it's still not clicking with me that it's NFL week 1. Like, this is the opening game of the 2020 NFL season. And I don't know if it's because there was no preseason and all we had was really training camp. And I didn't even watch Hard Knocks this year, which is nuts. It didn't hit me. It's still not hitting me. I'm watching it right now and I'm like, yeah, what is this? This is a rerun? So let's get into the Mets first of all. I know I dove into the Giants and the NFL right off the bat, but we're actually gonna dabble with the Mets, Los Metros. Let's talk Mets. The franchise, Tom Seaver, passed away, died Monday at the age of 75 due to complications with Lewy body dementia and the coronavirus. I've never heard of Lewy body dementia. I've heard of dementia, and I know this is selfish of me and narcissistic and self-centered and egotistic, but dementia, I don't want dementia. It's just scary beyond a belief. It's just, I think there might be a lady in our complex, in our little condominium complex here, that has it. And her son, God bless this dude. This woman is got to be in her 60s, 70s, maybe older. Her son, I assume, lives with her because my wife has told me that he and the mother get in their car more than a dozen times a day. They drive somewhere and they drive back a dozen times a day. And it must be in an effort to assuage, if that's a word, to ease the dementia or to not have her completely lose her marbles. I don't know. But Alzheimer's and dementia are two of the scariest things that are staring me right down. I'm staring right down the barrel of those two things, those two illnesses, for sure. My memory is just gone completely out the window. You can feed me all the ginkgo biloba you want. It's not coming back to me. But let's recap for real quick, because I was born in 80. Okay. I didn't catch any of Tom Seaver. So, I'm an 80s baby, born in 80, wasn't really cognizant or conscious of the Mets until 85, probably. Just in time to catch a world championship. No big deal. And so I remember hearing about Seaver and seeing maybe clips here and there. But as a kid growing up, it's like, my guys were Hernandez, Darling, Good and Strawberry, Hojo, Ray Knight, Rafael Santana, Tim Tuffle, Wally Backman, Lenny Dykstra. The 80s Mets were my guys. And, the 90s were interesting. But Tom Seaver, to me, was a product of the 60s, 70s, if I'm right. And so even my mom was like, we were talking about Seaver over breakfast. And she said, I was in college when he was big time. So, and I wasn't, paying, and that's back in like the late 60s, early 70s when, if she's not, I don't think most games are televised. And if they are, they're not televised at her college in Ohio or Arizona. She went to a bunch of colleges. So, he's as sad as, and this is another nail in my coffin in terms of people thinking that I'm a fake Mets fan, that he was an afterthought for me. it was like, oh yeah, Tom Seaver. I always had to remind myself. So it's odd even now looking on Twitter, after someone passes on Twitter or online, you see all these, people sending out their heartfelt memories and stories and whatnot. But then you see some of these people that are in their 20s now and talking highly of Seaver, and you're like, I don't. There's no way that you have an appreciation for Seaver that someone the same amount of appreciation or any kind of appreciation for Seaver that someone who actually watched him play. So I don't have any memories of Seaver. I think maybe seeing him Hall of Fame speech, maybe he would come into the booth sometimes, but that's the extent of my knowledge of Tom Seaver. So it's you always hear about how great he was. They took way too long. The Mets organization took way too long to put up his statue. So he didn't get to see it before, things went south for him, which is unfortunate. But, they do have Tom Seaver Way. They're putting up the statue. It's just a little too much too late. Too little too late, I guess. So, but all that said, I did a little digging on his numbers and I saw, all the statistics being thrown around online about him. And it is impressive. 109.9 WAR, which is 22nd among all players. More than 3,600 strikeouts, which is 6th all time. More than 300 wins, which is 11th all time. ERA under 3. 647 games started. More than 230 complete games, which the top of my head is no longer part of my body. It's gone to another planet. And I understand the mound was higher in the 60s or something like that, but still, whoa. Also, when you think about older pitchers back in the day, you don't think, you think to yourself, but they didn't throw like, they're not like Randy Johnson or DeGrom that are pumping upper 90s, mid 90s, and 100. I'd be surprised if they even cracked a 90. And it turns out, no, like Seaver was pumping 94 at least minimum on his fastball. So 61 shutouts, 7th all time, 12 all-star games. And he's one of 10 pitchers in Major League Baseball history with at least 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts. So, and I did a quick comparison. I don't have the numbers in front of me now, but I did do a quick comparison with DeGrom because that was that's kind of what your next train of thought if you're a Mets fan is like, well, right now DeGrom is doing things that almost no one has done in a long time. We talked about it, last episode, that he's probably, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get his 3rd straight Cy Young. The numbers that he's putting up, I looked at the Mets all-time franchise leaders, and there are certain statistics, like that complete game statistic, that's just like DeGrom has no shot. And wins is another one. Like DeGrom has no shot at the wins total, which is, it's unfortunately, as time passes and it just happens. You're reduced to numbers if you're an athlete. And so that number will continue to evade him, and that wins discussion he'll constantly fall short, which stinks. But everything else, he's right there. I think strikeouts, he's on pace. ERA, I think he's on pace to be the number one guy in franchise history. 12 All-Star games. I mean, this is where, I think DeGrom is early 30s now. Can he he's just now hitting 100 on his fastball, which is just what? That still throws me off when I say it. Like, okay. So I'd say, can he go another 10 years? Can he go another 6 years? I would love for him to be around until he's 40. But the problem is, Maddox was a whole different ball of wax. Like Maddox was a guy that could spot his fastball, a lot of movement, location. Same with Tommy Glavine, guy that can pitch into his late 30s, 40s, not a fireball, not a not throwing heat per se, but a guy that just can dot the strike zone. And DeGrom is doing that now, but he's doing that with a ton of velocity, which is making him basically untouchable. Can he continue to hit his spots, but lose the velocity into his late 30s so that what's the longevity plan here? Obviously he's not going to be able to go up top, 100 miles per hour and blow people away. Can he still be effective enough? And I think in the next 5 years, the answer is yes. The following 5 years, that's where it's going to be tricky. But some of those numbers, attainable. But some of those numbers are just like, nope. But R.I.P. Tom Seaver. And the Mets had a nice tribute to him too, with the dirt placing the dirt on their right knee before the game after hearing the news. Seaver was a drop and drive pitcher delivery. There's tall and fall and there's drop and drive. What was I? I don't even know. I was not a tall and fall, but I didn't drop and drive. That's probably why I was not good. So, yeah, Tom Seaver. They're also, we had Jackie Robinson Day since our last episode where everyone was wearing 42. A lot of people were saying, the Mets should all wear 41 in honor of Tom Seaver. And it's like, I know this is like a multi-billion-dollar operation, but I don't know that they can turn that around on a dime. My assumption is I would hope every day or the day of his passing every year that they would do it. That's a nice little tip, tip of the cap to him. But I don't know. They also had Roberto Clemente Day, where we had a few players that were donned number 21 in honor of Roberto Clemente. So, yeah, it was tough. And I know it kind of touched a lot of people. They had, Craig Swanee from the Mets team in the 60s who couldn't even finish a sentence on the phone talking with Gary, Keith, and Ron about it. So it's just like life can not be fair sometimes. All right. I can't even begin to describe what just happened last night. At around 10:15 at night, my wife had gone out for dinner to Hoboken with a friend, and she came home, didn't have her key because we had gone away. I'm not going to say where because that's embargoed until 14 days later. So the door was locked and I had to let her in. And through that chain of events, that series of events, somehow I messed up the recording settings on this episode. So I hit, and this is where Adobe Audition can drive a man to insanity. There's a record button, okay? And you can press the record button and you can just hit record and think you're recording and you're not recording because you have to hit arm for record, which is the little R button on the host track. You have to hit that before you hit the record button. Otherwise, it doesn't record. I can clearly see plain as day that it is recording now. It is now September 11th. Around, I won't give away the time. It's September 11th now. I was recording on September 10th, very late at night, very tired. And that's what happens when you're tired. You don't get sleep. You don't focus. You don't notice when shit is not recording. So that's what's happening. Where did I leave off? So here's the fun part. I thought I was recording. And so I proceeded to talk. I looked back, it was almost an hour before I realized, hey, numbnuts, knucklehead, not recording. So 44 minutes, almost an hour of me giving you some just really grade A, top of the line shit. And it's lost. I mean, I recorded the video. The video is still recorded. So maybe that'll be, 20 years from now, I'll release the lost tapes on special DVD combo box set. But to be honest, I don't know that you missed much. There were some good jokes here and there mixed in, peppered in, sprinkled in, that maybe I can pull out and adjust the audio, because the audio on my GoPro stinks. But that's not why the GoPro does what they do. Not for the audio, son. It's for the visuals. And right now you're getting a really nice visual of how tired I look. And that's because my daughter decided I put my daughter to bed last night, fed her some quinoa. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you get your jokes in. Just fire away. Bring out the firing squad. Oh my God, Neal eats quinoa. Yeah, I eat quinoa. And she apparently wanted some. I thought she was just a Cheerios and Goldfish type of gal, but she wanted some quinoa. And I had put some and this is where, people are confused by me, and I can understand it. Quinoa is supposed to be healthy, but then I put some kind of weird teriyaki soy thing dressing on it. And then I also added some creamy buffalo wings. So it completely defeats the purpose of the quinoa. But that's just how I roll. And she wanted it, and I gave her a fork full after I fluffed the quinoa with the fork, which is so bizarre. There's fluffing? What is this, a porn set? Why are we fluffing? Why can't we just stir? That's the only, that and rice maybe. Quinoa and rice are the only things you fluff in the food world. So she wanted a taste. I gave her a taste, and she kind of made a couple of facial expressions, went back to playing, and she was like, I don't know if I like that. And then she came back to it, and she wanted more. And the great thing about quinoa is that you miss the mouth if you get it anywhere on your face with a toddler, especially my toddler. She automatically will take her hand and wipe her entire face into her hair. So if she has anything on her face, that's now in the hair. And with quinoa, it can get ugly quick. So that's ended up what happening last night. I fed her some quinoa, and I'm wondering now if that was a mistake, because I put her down around 8:30, sang her 5 nice nursery rhymes, lullabies, whatever. And then she was up at apparently 2:15. I didn't even hear her at 2:15. My wife got up to get her. And then I eventually woke up at almost 4:00 and was like, whoa. And I got up to go to the bathroom, and my wife's like, don't go in there. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to the bathroom. And I was like, should I go in there? And eventually my wife was like, yeah, I've been up for the past 2 hours with her. And I was like, ooh, did not know that. So, what the fuck? And she just would not go to bed. So from 2 to basically 9, when we dropped her off at daycare, she's just been up. And I even gave her at 4:00. I did the old go to sleep. If you remember when you were a kid, I know that happened to me, where with me, it was watching TV in bed, because I had a little TV, probably the size of this GoPro camera in my room when I was starting at the age of 8. Probably not a good thing, but I mean, whatever. And I did the whole dad move. Moms, they tend to they go in, they're like, oh, they'll cuddle and snuggle and be like, it's okay, let's just and they'll hum, and so nice and gentle and soft. And I just went in there with my sleep mask, which I think has given me pink eye, by the way. The sleep mask that I got from the CBD distillery, because we order from CBD distillery so much, which I don't even know if we order from them anymore, but they tend to give you a free gift every once in a while. And so I have the CBD distillery socks, big time addition to the sock wardrobe, to the sock line that I have. which I have not worn them because my feet are too fat from gout. So I don't wear those, although I probably should. They'd probably act as compression socks. But yeah, so the CBD hat, the socks, and now we have the sleep mask. And I've been using the sleep mask, but I think it's been giving me pink eye. I think my wife might have like farted on it when I wasn't looking. And now it's like all over my eye. And now I wake up with pink eye every morning. Great. So I went in, stomped into her room as she's screaming bloody murder at 4 a.m. and just did the whole go to sleep. And actually, the first go to sleep worked. She just immediately stopped crying and laid down. But then I went to close the door and she immediately started up again. So I opened it up again and I said, lay down, go to sleep, lay down, go to sleep, lay down, go to sleep. Like just direct, not soft, just straightforward. And that seemed to work. But then I tried to close the door again. She piped up again. So I was like, well, maybe if I leave the door open. So then I left the door open, kind of crept away, and it seemed to work. And then it was like 10 minutes later, she's crying again. So then I went back in, gave her some Tylenol, because why not? Figuring maybe it's her teeth, because her teeth appear to be fully in, but maybe they're still hurting her. So I gave her some Tylenol. And then I threw on the nightlight because I'm like, oh, I don't know. When did nightlights come into play? I feel like every kid at one point in their, over the course of their childhood, they have a nightlight because it just helps them, I guess, a little bit, not be so afraid of the dark. So I threw that on. And that worked for a hot minute. But then, nope, she was up crying again. So the Tylenol had zero effect on her. And, I think I was the first year and a half of her life, I was very concerned about what kind of dosage we're giving her and being so exact in my measurements. And this one was just like, whatever it is, it is. Recently on a group chat on Instagram, one of my buddies from high school forwarded a note that from a friend who had passed. It's now been 2 years since he passed, or a year, 2 years. But he, I think it was an overdose, which is no bueno. But he had written a note to another friend of ours for a baby shower, and it was just like kind of just a bullet point list of things that he learned about, from being a father. A note to, I guess, a would-be first-time father, saying kids are super resilient. Don't let anyone let you think otherwise. They are super resilient. They can bounce back. Don't beat yourself up when they get beat up. Basically, they'll bounce back better than you would ever imagine, better than us sometimes. Quick side note, the kid took a little tumble on the stairs before my wife left, because I was cooking the chicken and the quinoa, and, just thought the kid, like, when do you have to stop watching your kid like a hawk is basically what I want to know. Like, are we at the stage? She's just turned 2. We had her birthday for her. She's getting presents. It's still not clicking yet. I don't think maybe next year is the age when the presents start to click for her, and she's like looking forward to her birthday and Christmas and all that. But right now it's just like, okay, here's a thing, and there's like all this paper on it. What do you want me to do with it? But so, I'm cooking dinner. My wife's getting ready to go out, and luckily she was right by the stairs. So the kid kind of took a half tumble, I guess you could say, and my wife caught her. But yeah, she cried for like a minute. And got a little red in the face, but no major cracks or bruises that are visible, I guess. So, but she bounced back from that. And then it's like the Tylenol, I would measure it out to the exact T. It wouldn't go like a little, even like a pixel above what the line has. And this time I was just like, so, but yeah, up at 2 and just refused to go back to sleep. So running on. I was running on fumes last night, and oddly enough, I actually feel like I have more energy today than I did last night trying to record. So where did we leave off? Holy shit. first of all, it's 9/11. Never forget. I'll probably leave my memories and thoughts of that to the end of the pod, end of the show, end of the ep. So if you really want to tune in for that, I can't imagine you stick around. But if you want to, that's when I'll be giving that talk. Where were we? We're in the middle of the Mets. Holy macaroni. Yeah. So just to put a bow on the Tom Seaver talk, dude entered the league at 22, left at 41. You know, I was comparing Seaver to DeGrom and just saying like, wow, Seaver is the all-time franchise leader in just about every major statistical category for the Mets. And that if there were someone to, I guess, threaten his throne to possibly usurp him on that list, it would be Jacob DeGrom. And there are certain statistics that it's just never going to happen, but which is unfortunate because I think, people, that's how people measure athletes and unfortunately pitchers is by wins, which, unless the Mets under the guidance of new owner Steve Cohen, unless they start to make some moves, smart moves with their money and lock up some long-term guys, similar to how the Phillies did with Harper and Padres with Machado and Dodgers with Betts, which could very well happen. DeGrom just goes on a series of 20-game win seasons while not putting up the same exact numbers that he is now. Oh man, I just got a little lightheaded thinking about that. But, strikeouts is what I'm looking at now. DeGrom is just almost guaranteed to have double-digit strikeouts each outing. And Seaver has something like, so I think DeGrom's at like 1,500 and Seaver is at 20 or 3,000, 2,500 with the Mets. So if you're looking at 30 starts a season, 10 starts, 10 Ks per start, you're looking at, 300 Ks he could add to per season. So I don't know. I think that's something that is definitely within reach. So the end of August ended on kind of a sour note for us Mets fans. It started off, that final weekend started off with so much promise. We swept the Yankees in that 7-inning doubleheader on Jackie Robinson Day, and then lost the remaining 3 games of the series. Very winnable games that probably for a lot of Mets fans would have hurt a lot more and stung a lot more if the news didn't come down that Steve Cohen won the bid and he will be the new Mets owner. Of course, we can't just let this story die. At least if you're the New York Post, you still want to. I think the New York Post hates Steve Cohen, is my take on this. That's my take, because why else would they keep breathing life into the A-Rod group? So all Mets fans, in my opinion, are in love with Steve Cohen and couldn't care less about what's going on with this season, because Uncle Stevie's on his way to save the day and to save the franchise, really. But there was a story in the New York Post about how A-Rod is pissed and is threatening to pursue legal action or file an appeal and saying, he thinks that the sale was fixed to Steve Cohen, which it's like, knowing the Wilpons' relationship with Steve Cohen, why would it be fixed? I did think this was interesting, though. A-Rod and J-Lo's pitch to save their Mets bid included a guarantee, a World Series guarantee, that if the Mets would win a World Series within the first 10 years of their ownership, or they'll donate $100 million in New York charities, which is very nice. But I don't know why the Wilpons would ever give 2 flying Fs about that. Very nice, but okay. I think Steve Cohen has the bankroll to make that guaranteed times another 100 million. So, it really comes down to money. And if the Wilpons are such as much of as as big as penny pinchers as we know them to be, Cohen can just continue to throw more and more money at them, and the old fuck you money. One last tidbit on the Mets sale, though. J-Lo would be the controlling owner, which, A-Rod has been kind of the name that has been at the forefront. He's the face of that group, but at the same time, he's not bankrolling it. It's J-Lo who would be the controlling owner, which would be very interesting. That's one point in favor of that group. Like, I'd love to see how that would pan out. I just like that. I don't want it to happen, but I'd like to take a glimpse into that alternate reality, like J-Lo as controlling owner. What do the concerts look like at Citi Field moving forward once this pandemic takes a fucking long walk off a short pier? And do the uniforms change? Do we go with the deep V a la her outfit at the 2000 Grammys? I think that's a good look. Obviously, I'm a shitty comedian and I make shitty jokes. That's what I do. So would love to put together like a blog post about like, what if J-Lo was the controlling owner? How does that look for the franchise? So August ends, kind of bittersweet note. On the field, we're not playing well. Off the field, we have a new owner. And then we also had some trade. So the trade deadline was at the end of August as well. And I know Mets fans up and down, left and right, all over the world were panicking, clenching our jaws, our fists, our butt cheeks, our buttholes about what Brodie Van Wags was going to do. What stupidity was he going to bring to the franchise and exercise at the trade deadline? And yeah, he made a couple of kind of really redundant, mind-boggling moves. The previous episode, I was talking about all the available starting pitching arms that are probably out there that we could definitely use, and we did not get a starting pitcher. I thought we could have probably dealt one of our shortstop prospects, considering Jimenez has proven himself to be the better of the two options between him and Rosario. And so Jimenez is your guy at short, it looks like. You keep Rosario, or do you trade him knowing that you have another prospect in the wings? Do you trade the shortstop prospect thinking, okay, Rosario is nice insurance? What's the deal there? To get a starting pitcher, maybe even to get another outfield bat. Now that, we're kind of hamstrung there. Nope. Instead, we brought in yet another infielder. And all things considered, if you're going to bring in an infielder, I'm just happy that they brought Todd back. I know a lot of Mets. There's a contingency of Mets fans that are like, fuck Todd Frazier. What the hell? Like they just didn't want him back. I personally love to have him back because if we do have this wild kind of run in us like we did last year, would like him to be a part of that. And if we do win a ring, as faulty or fraudulent as people think it is or will be, for him to get a ring with the Mets is just so nice. I mean, the whole reason he's back is not because we need him per se. Although Pete Alonso using Todd Frazier's bat and hitting ding-dongs and yabos left and right, don't hate that. And someone made a joke on Twitter, like, does this mean we're going to re-sign Frazier like a 6-year contract just so Alonso can use his bat? It's like, sure, why not? But, Frazier is a Brodie client. He pretty much signed the Rangers deal before this whole pandemic thing happened, I believe. So now that the pandemic has happened and he hasn't been able to see his family's in New Jersey, bring him on back. And then hopefully he can contribute here and there, possibly as a DH, which we already have so many DHs in the mix, but maybe he's a DH. Maybe he's the guy that, it gives you more options basically. In the event that's maybe someone slumps, I don't know. He's already had a pretty significant impact in the games that he's played and started. He hit a home run. He's had scoring runs. So he's pumping some light. And I know people make fun of that and mock, what people say about him and the energy he brings to the clubhouse. They mock it. They mock ceaselessly. But I think he has a positive impact on the ball club. So we'll see how that goes. But Jesus, like, we did not need another infielder, especially at third base, where we now have the possibility of Davis, McNeil, Frazier. You could even throw Cano and Jimenez there. So plenty of third basemen to go around. It's the outfield where we have some problems, especially in left. But, McNeil made a nice play in left the other game, the comeback against the Orioles, where he dove and then slid and hit the wall. And so, does McNeil give you the best option in left defensively? Yeah, I guess so. Stick Davis at third, and if McNeil needs a day off defensively, maybe he gives you a lot of options. So champagne problems in my mind, right? Chemistry be damned. Consistency be damned. I'm the most inconsistent person in the world. Anyone who's followed this show knows that. The other acquisition we made, Miguel Castro, saw this tweet that he has a ridiculous slider. Hitters are 3 for 17 with 10 strikeouts with a 45.7% whiff rate against his slider this year. The average spin on his slider is 2,948 revolutions per minute, which is tied for per minute. Yeah, per minute. Tied for fourth highest in baseball. I think that's on par with Seth Lugo. Problem is, he's also being compared to Edwin Diaz. And it's like, do we need another Edwin Diaz? The hope was that this is like the Edwin Diaz. Castro could be the Edwin Diaz of 2018. Instead, he is basically like Edwin Diaz of 2019. So he's either striking out a lot of dudes or giving up like back-breaking home runs to lose games. And that's what we got so far. So did we need another reliever? I don't think so. But we now have a bunch of like relievers that can either be super dominant or they are just losing us ball games. There's no in between. There's no just get outs. We don't care if you strike guys out, just get outs. But what is really incredible about Castro is his body type. I grew up, like I said, I was born in 80. I lived through the steroid era. That was pretty much towards the end of high school, or in high school through into college. So, my most impressionable years were seeing guys that were just yoked. McGuire, who the hell was that reliever, that closer for the Dodgers, who is just a massive mountain of a man? Gagne. Bigger, stronger, faster, harder is like, that's how I always pictured it. We had a dude in college, 6'8", 300, would come on the mound, and it was intimidating. And no, he didn't throw 100, but he would throw close to 90, and the arm angle and whatever. Castro looks like such a small dude, just slight and slender, that it's insane to me that he's able to fling the ball like he flings, mid to mid 90s averaging. That to me is like, it just, from a physics standpoint, I can't wrap my head around it, because you see bigger guys and you think, oh, like in order to throw mid 90s to high 90s, you need to be, like whoever the fuck that guy was. He played for the Yankees and the Cubs. Just a big, broad-shouldered dude, like just a thoroughbred stud. The Holidays of the world, the Thors of the world. They have to be like these big, imposing figures. And then Castro comes along, and literally, I don't know that there's any bone or any muscle on his bones. Like, you look at his legs, and they're just like toothpicks, and yet this guy's just hurling the ball, and has not been able to fool. I mean, he's either straight, like it's same deal as Diaz. First two batters of the inning, he'll strike him out, make him look silly, and then he'll give up a double and a home run. And it's like, holy shit, what the hell just happened? What just happened? So I would say we whiffed. I'm going to talk about whiff rate. We whiffed on Miguel Castro. And then the last acquisition, Robinson Chirinos. I had kind of talked about it last year, the last offseason. Is that someone we want to bring in? He's on the older side. Defensively, he's good, but offensively, is he going to be the guy that, can contribute to at least offset enough to justify him in the lineup? And it's like he's batting, I think he was batting at the time of the trade like 126, and I have not seen him do much in the box since we got him. Defensively, yeah, definitely an upgrade over Wilson Ramos, but again, we gave away Kevin Smith, a prospect, I think, for starting pitching prospect for Miguel Castro. That's yet another starting pitching prospect. And, it's just another damnation of Steve Cohen. Like, this is just more, the evidence is mounting against this dude. I mean, he's got to be gone after this year. He has to be. He's given away if he did not give away all our starting pitching prospects, can you imagine where we are right now? Anthony Kay, Simeon Woods Richardson, Kevin Smith. Who was the other pitcher that we just got rid of? It's just like, it's nuts. Oh, Jordan Humphreys. So that was the other thing I was going to talk about. When Frazier came back, he's wearing 33. And I was like, whoa, that looks weird on him for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just used to him wearing 21. But then you remember, oh, yeah, Billy Hamilton's 21. So what does Billy Hamilton go out and do? Late inning game, close. He gets on. He's the pinch runner, which is exactly how you use him. You don't use him to hit. You don't use him for defensively. Maybe defensively use him to track down balls in the gap over his head, whatnot. Defensively, he's probably better than what Nimmo's giving you. Maybe even Resnick. But primarily, he's going to be a base stealer, right? That's why we got him. Late innings, he can steal a base, maybe two. He steals second. Great. He tries to steal third, gets thrown out. I think Davis is up at bat. Davis then hits a home run. Would have been the go-ahead run. Instead, we're tied when we go into extra innings. I think we ended up winning that game. It was either the Phillies game where we came all the way back and then ended up losing in extras, or it's the Yankees game where we did come back and win, but it took us, an extra inning because Billy Hamilton got thrown out third. So after that blunder, he gets DFA'd, and then the Cubs pick him up off of waivers. So who did we, it's exactly what I didn't want to happen. It's like, if you had signed Billy Hamilton in the offseason when you didn't have to trade a prospect for him, all right, fine. You took a flyer on him, didn't work out. You can DFA him and feel good about yourself. But when you trade a top prospect like Jordan Humphreys, 14th ranked prospect, for a guy like Billy Hamilton, you have to see it all the way through. You have to die by that sword. I understand, in business, you want to own up to your mistakes and move on. Totally get that. All for it. Put your hand up. But on this one, it's like, I would have gone to my grave with Billy Hamilton on the roster and have him continue to be a late inning pinch runner, because you have to justify that trade. And now it's not justified. It's just another strike against BB Dubs. Look at these numbers are pretty awful. Hamilton hit .045. He stole one base, which I guess was the base that I saw where he stole a second. And he posted a negative .2 WAR over 17 games. Yikes. Oh boy. And then Jed Lowry is eligible to be removed off the 45-day injured list. And this is where we're at with Jed Lowry. Some reporter asked Rojas about it, and Rojas just said, I have no idea what's going on with him. I have no idea. At this point, you can just count on us probably not using him and just handing over $20 million and telling him to go take a hike. So the end of August was tumultuous, to say the least. I think the ball club was in kind of a weird spot. We lost some games that we should have won. And thus far in September, we're almost 2 weeks into September now, and we're about playing like 500 ball, but we could be playing 600 ball, games that there was only one game where we got blown out and we just did not have a chance. And that was against the Orioles on the 8th, 11-2. Other than that, that when we lost to, the Phillies were trying to give away the game to us. Didi Gregorius, in particular, defensively, was just making bonehead play after bonehead play. And yet we couldn't capitalize, and we let them hang around. And then who ends up winning the game? Didi fucking... Oh, no, John Segura. I don't know. I get Segura and Gregorius mixed up. My B. But, you think like, oh, the Pete Alonso's first ever walk-off home run against the Yankees. First ever walk-off home run of his career. Extras. We win the game on 9-3, come back, lose 5-3 to the Phillies. We blow out the Phillies 4-2-1, we come back and we lose a heartbreaker in extras. And then we get blown out. But then we come back and we have a come from behind. But this is how things are starting to play out now. Brodie Van Wagenen has crippled us in our starting rotation pitching. Absolutely crippled us. That this is where we are now. Every start that isn't DeGrom or Lugo, I would have put Peterson in that group, but Peterson had an awful outing this most recent go-round. Now you're looking at first 2 innings, we're in a hole by like 4 or 5 runs. And so now we have to battle uphill against that. Luckily, the offense is coming around, but how much every game you're going to have to depend on your offense to keep you just score and score and score and score. Is that what it's going to be like? Stupid Brodie. Since 2019, Pete Alonso has hit 21 home runs in the 7th inning or later, which is tied with Cody Bellinger for most in MLB. Hell yeah, Polar Bear Pete. I think there were some haters that were saying, okay, sophomore slump in full effect. Pete's he couldn't match what he did last year. He just couldn't capitalize on it, and maybe it got into his head. And so that's that for Pete Alonso. Just write him off. No big deal. And instead, he now has like 11 home runs after 44 games. Extrapolate that to 162. The dude's pretty much almost on pace with what he was doing last year. So good to see him heating up, thanks to Todd Frazier's bat. MLB hits leaders, Michael Conforto. This was from a while. This might have been, I don't know how recent this is, but Michael Conforto is number two in the majors in hits with 53. There are 2 players with an OPS of 1,000, over 1,000, that have more than 30 RBIs, with at least half of their hits going for extra bases. One of which is Mike Trout. The other one is Dominic Smith. So that's that is like, whoa. To mention Dom Smith in the same breath as Mike Trout, that's something. So, like I said, we have champagne problems when it comes to our infield and our lineups. The fact that we have so many good, options is good to see. Can't say the same for the pitching. Robert Gesellman, has a fractured rib. He's out for the rest of the season. They originally thought it would be a strained oblique. He had a strained tricep in summer camp. He had injuries last year. I can't remember the last time that he actually finished the season with the club healthy. In 6 appearances this season, Gesellman pitched to a 9.64 ERA. So it's tough. You don't want to write him off. I want to be on the Gesellman bandwagon for sure. I want to be a fan, but you got to stay healthy, dude. But then you think about Zach Wheeler. Like, Wheeler was out of baseball for 2 full friggin' years, came back and is now pitching at Cy Young level. He's approaching DeGrom status. So if we had Steve Cohen, Zach Wheeler would, before the 2020 season, Zach Wheeler would be a Met, and who knows where we are. We're definitely not 20 and 24, I'll tell you that much. Edwin Diaz in 2020, 18 innings pitched. 18 innings pitched. 2 ERA, 38 Ks, 19 Ks per 9 innings. And you look at that and you say to yourself, oh, he must have like a bajillion saves. He must be our closer. He must be this. He must be that. And it's just no. He's not. He has proven himself unworthy in the closer position. He has now been used mostly in the 7th or 8th innings or in the 9th inning when it's not a non-save opportunity. And, there are two groups of people. There are the statisticians who look at that and say, why do Mets fans hate this guy? Why don't you have more trust in him? Why this? Why this? And then you have the Mets fans who have actually seen him pitch in 2019, see what he did to us, and see what he did so far in 2020 when given the reins in a save opportunity. And there's a reason why we cringe and we can't bear to watch. It's because when he's put in that situation, in a save situation, he's just not getting the job done. So that's where numbers can lie. They say numbers never lie. No, that's a lie. Chase and Shreve this season, 18 2/3 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts. This was before his latest outing because he got lit up his most recent appearance. But yeah, that's something that's a guy who's flown a little bit under the radar. He's been Mr. Dependable, Mr. Reliable. And but he's even had some issues. Justin Wilson has been having some issues. So it's like maybe that's contributed to why we picked up Castro. But no, just about, I don't think anyone outside of, maybe Shreve that you can count on. Now that Lugo's in the starting rotation, like who do you go to? It's just kind of like whoever's got the hot hand, whoever feels good that night, whoever's got some pep in their step. So I mentioned this and teased this in the intro. These are the 3 numbers that tell the Mets story in 2020. This is by Anthony DiComo, MLB.com. The first number is 6.34. That's the Mets rotation ERA minus Jacob deGrom. And if you take out Lugo, that bumps it up to 6.75. Michael Wacha and Rick Porcello are big contributors that inflated ERA. Both signed to 1-year deals worth combined $13 million. So half of what we would have paid Zach Wheeler. But they have been ineffective, going 2-7 with a 6.29 ERA. Of the 14 games they've started, Mets have lost 10 of them. If we had other options, we could pursue it. We just have 0 other options. Opposing batters are hitting .326 off Porcello in 9 starts this season. Dear God. It's at the point now where I don't think that you bring back Matz into the fold. Gesellman's no longer an option to start or be an opener. So, you just got to keep trying people out, I guess. Erasmo Ramirez, he had a good outing. He was not the starter. I think he came in for Wacha, or maybe he came in for Peterson in like the second in the most recent game against the Phillies or the Orioles, and kept us in the game long enough for us to come back. So maybe Ramirez is an option. But the Mets have already used more starting pitchers, 10, than they did all last year, 9. And I think that number is only going to go up because I don't know how much longer you can stick around with Wacha and Porcello, knowing that you are going to be in a fucking 5-run hole after 2 innings. It's like, guys, if you could just give us, like, I'm okay with you giving up 1 run per inning over 5 innings. If you can give us 5 runs over 5 innings, that's fine. 5 runs right out the gate is so demoralizing. Peterson, Lugo, and deGrom have a combined ERA of 2.30. Of course, deGrom is at like 1.69 right now. The other 7 starting pitchers, 7.16 ERA. So maybe this last outing from Peterson was just a fluke. Hopefully it is. And so now you're looking for, I think you might even go down to a 4-man starting rotation. And you got to look at who in your bullpen gives you the best option to go the longest. Is it Ramirez? Maybe Ramirez is the guy to give you 4 or 5 innings. And then you have a committee after Ramirez. So Ramirez is your opener. Hopefully he gives you 4, maybe 5. And then, it's by committee. And then you go back to DeGrom. I think you just have to, just say, Jake, can you give us every 4 days? Can you give us 7 innings? And just, hope and pray. The 3 big Mets offseason acquisitions. Dellin Betances, 6.10 ERA. Rick Porcello, 6.43 ERA. Michael Wacha, 7.41 ERA. Barf, vomit, regurgitate. Zach Wheeler has a 2.20 ERA. And I mean, I tell you, I keep saying it, broken record. But with Van Wagenen out, Cohen in, you're not going to see this bullshit anymore. You're not going to see us signing guys that are past their prime, over the hill, giving them kind of, half-assed contracts to see them struggle and fail. You're going to see us re-sign our studs. That's why as soon as he's owner, he's going to extend Conforto. He's going to extend Alonso. He's going to lock up all your top talent now before they have an idea. Like DeGrom, that's the one. I mean, KFC and Clem have said this repeatedly on We Gotta Believe, but the Mets, Brodie's only had a couple good moves out of dozens. JD Davis one, maybe Justin Wilson, but re-signing DeGrom long term for what we got for him, what we're paying for him is just a heist of the highest order, a theft. And I think you can at least get, if you start to talk with those guys, your homegrown talent, your top talent, your Dom Smiths, your McNeils, your Alonsos, your Confortos, your Nimos. Yeah, I'll put Nimmo in that category. Lock up that core team membership now. You won't have to pay more later. Long term, team friendly to a certain extent, where it's like if they get hurt, yeah, we want some of that money back. But I think, these guys have proven themselves enough to extend them. And Thor, I mean, people kind of forget about Thor, that, okay, he had Tommy John, but you look at guys that have had Tommy John and have come back, Wheeler, So I think he'll come back bigger and better than ever. But Jesus, man, Brodie really fucked over this squad. And it sucks because in someone, I think it might have been, I don't know, from the Post, Sherman or Schwartz or whoever, said that, we are wasting Jacob deGrom's prime with the kind of squad we're putting together. So that's on Brodie. I think Sandy Alderson did what he could given his constraints. Brodie has done way, way worse given those same constraints. So now that the handcuffs are off and we're free to spend, I think we will not waste DeGrom from this point forward. He will put up, personally, he'll probably put up, quote unquote, worse numbers. But I think the team that we're going to surround him with is going to compensate for that. So he doesn't have to throw 7 innings of 1 run ball. He can give us 6 of 3 runs and still win. The next number on this article, 52. It's the number of points between the Mets' major league leading batting average with the bases empty, which is 289, and their mark with runners in scoring position, which is 237, which is like, whoa, dude. Whoa. Can you imagine if they are able to split that difference? If they're, hitting 260 with runners in scoring position, how different this season is. Definitely not 20 and 24. The last number that we're looking at is 647. That is the what the Mets probably will have to, the record, the winning percentage that we'll have to put up in order to make the playoffs. Of course, we could make the playoffs with a 500 record, but the odds are not great. I think, Yeah, we'd have to go. Well, this was before the game that the last game against the Orioles on the 9th where we came back and won. So I think we'd have to go 10-6 the rest of the way. So 600 ball, basically. I mean, considering what we were able to do last year, winning 15 of 16 to put us back on the hunt, it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's just that we also had a different rotation last year. Our bullpen was starting to come into its own at this point last year, and weren't blowing saves and weren't giving up. We had Lugo had moved, firmly entrenched himself as the closer, and we had Stroman and Matz and Thor and Wheeler and DeGrom, and so we were clicking more in the starting rotation. We don't have that this year, so we also 12 straight games against teams in playoff position. Ooh, boy. So not looking great. Not looking great. Next up, we have the Blue Jays and Buffalo tonight. Hopefully we can call on Bills Mafia to give us to pump us up. Maybe we need to jump off some RVs onto break some tables to get the juices flowing so that we can. I mean, the Blue Jays are in a tough spot as well. I think Bichette is hurt. I think one of their starting pitchers is hurt. So maybe we're catching them at a good time. But we do have to end up facing the Rays, who are white hot. So, so taking a look at the playoff odds. This is from baseballreference.com. They have the Dodgers most likely winning the West and being the top seed, the Braves winning the East, Cubs winning the Central, and then you have the Padres getting one of the wild cards, the Cardinals getting a wild card, the Phillies, Giants, and Marlins as the remaining 3 wild cards. Insane to me that the Marlins are still playing at the level that they are. Crazy. And then there's also there's news now that even if the Cardinals don't play a full 60, that they'll still be awarded a playoff spot. No. I don't like that, not one bit. So, Baseball Reference projects us to finish out the season 8-8. So the remaining 16 games we'll play 500 ball and end up with a 28-32 record, which unbelievable. They have 90% confidence that we'll finish with a 31-29 record as a best case scenario, and a worst case scenario 25-35. So there's a 10% chance that we fall outside that range. Stranger things have happened. And we have a 34% chance of securing the wild card. So, could be worse. But, yeah. We just have to figure out, Waka and Porcello have to, give us something. Give us something better than what they're giving us. This is a tweet from Rich McLeod, I don't know. The Mets have been under 500 for 41 straight days, and the season started, not 47 days ago. We've lost 3/5 of our starting rotation, trailing in almost every game in the bottom 5 with runners in scoring position, more blown saves than saves. And he says, we're not making the playoffs. It's all right. You make some good points there, but that's not over the course. I think because it is a smaller sample size than, over the course, if we were in a 162 game season in September, I think maybe that would hit home a little more. I think the fact that teams have these kind of, they have these stretches of time. So you're looking at basically a month and a half of a season. And so these kind of things can happen over a month and a half. But you know what else can happen? What happened to us at the end of 2007 and 2008? What happened to us in 2019, where we went on a run? And I think, the mentality, the thinking in the clubhouse is that, we're very capable of going on a run, and we're going to get hot. We're going to go on a streak, and, damn the torpedoes. full steam ahead. Like, we don't care that our starting pitchers are giving up 5 innings in the first. We're going to come back and make a game of it. So I like the thought process. I like the attitude that they have. They're very positive. It seems like they feel like they can beat any team. And it's just like, we got to take 2 or 3 from every freaking series. There's no, you can't lose tight games, 1-run games. Got to win them. So how they're going to bootstrap that together, beyond me. But this Ramirez dude might be the answer. I mean, he did get knocked around, but it was like, I don't care if you're getting ripped, as long as they end up in someone's glove and it's an out. Gladly take that over a dude that strikes out 2 of the 3 batters he faces and then gives up a death knell home run. So I'll just end the baseball talk with this. Joel Sherman of the Post said that the MLB should expand the season to 174 games. I mean, get out of here, dude. And I know he made a bunch of valid points and he structured his argument very well. And I did not read most of it, but like, more of the 7-inning doubleheaders, no more 9-inning games, 8-inning games. No, dude, no one wants more baseball. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Baseball should align with hockey and basketball. 82 games. Boom. Done. So that's the Mets. Let's talk Giants. Got a lot to talk about. I wasn't around last week. So this week we're going to be catching up on all the news from the past 2 weeks. We'll be talking about the Logan Ryan signing, how that affects the secondary. Also the trade for former Broncos cornerback Isaac Yiadom. DeAndre Baker's release. Pro Football Focus has predicted the breakout player for the Giants this season and our most impressive rookie from camp. There were some surprise cuts as we had to get down to 53 dudes on the roster. Ryan Connelly and Corey Coleman. Dunzo. We'll look at how Daniel Jones compares to Patrick Mahomes. What? The first official depth chart has been released. I'll break that down, and then we'll give a quick preview of week 1 against the Steelers. So before we get into all that, I'll just have to say, I know preseason games can be tricky and that a lot of people don't like the preseason games. I think most of the players would say, most of the starters at least would say preseason's just an opportunity to get hurt. But one thing I have noticed this training camp without a preseason is the fans have no real way of telling who's good and who's not, who should make the team and who shouldn't. Not that none of us are equipped or capable of making those decisions. But as a fan, it would be nice to have that kind of reassurance to see the product on the field and to say, that guy looks like a player. And we didn't get that. Instead, we got these blue-white scrimmages, which I'm baffled by this stuff. I thought these were going to be full 3-hour-long games that we could see on NBC4 or whatever. Maybe it did air. Maybe I missed it. But instead, I had to catch the 30-minute condensed recaps on YouTube, and they didn't do a whole lot for me. The guys didn't look like they were going 100%. It was two-hand touch on passing plays, on running plays. I didn't know when a guy was down. It was hard to get a gauge and measure how the team looks, performs, who's a standout, who's not, I don't even know how the coaches watch something like that and say to themselves, yeah, we need to cut him. And this guy looks awesome. I mean, we waived Javon Leak after the first scrimmage, which is bonkers to me. There was all this talk about how he's making an impact in practice and throughout camp. He's projected to be possibly our kick returner or punt returner. Will be an addition on special teams. It looked kind of good in the scrimmage, I guess. I don't know. He was done after 1. Lorenzo Carter looked like a sack machine. He had like 1 million sacks. He had like 1 million sacks. 1 million sacks in the scrimmage. Just blowing past our left tackles, offensive line, who didn't look like they were trying too hard to pass protect. Meanwhile, Carter was going 1 million miles per hour and was able to rack up a ton of sacks. Is that going to translate to he's like the next LT is going to put up 20 plus sacks. What? Doubt it. So I don't know how you can watch those scrimmages and feel good or feel like you know anything more or better about this team. So not high on that. I mean, Wayne Gallman breaks a run, but I was saying to myself, like, is this an actual play from the scrimmage or is this like the warm-ups before the scrimmage? I don't know how you can read and react and make evaluations with this kind of like really toned down, watered down, I'll say it, half-assed type of scrimmage. You're not going 100%. So to make the cuts that they did, which we'll get into a little bit, the cuts just don't seem justified. First, let's talk about the Logan Ryan signing. 1 year, $7.5 million. 1 year for a base of $5 million. Includes a $3.5 million signing bonus and $2.5 in incentives. $1.5 million of which is readily achievable. Ryan was rated number 60 on the NFL's top 100 this offseason, and no other Giants defensive player was rated in the top 100. So, with McKinney going down with a fractured foot, with Ryan wanting to play this year and not getting any takers at his previous asking price, which I think was $9 to $10 million, we kind of scoffed and laughed at the idea that Ryan was pitching himself as a safety, or at least his agent was, sending out a memo to all the teams and comparing him to all the starting safeties. And we're like, yeah, but he's not a safety. He's a corner. And so he's putting up those kind of numbers as a corner. Can he put up those numbers as safety? Doubt it. But with McKinney going down till probably November, maybe December, and with Ryan dropping his asking price and looking like the cap hit's going to be closer to $6 million, pulled the trigger and signed him. And I like it. I've been pushing for us to sign Logan Ryan and to bring in a veteran presence who has had success in Tennessee and then New England, and it's only beneficial to the team. And it didn't really do that much damage. We didn't take a huge cap hit, so I'm all for it. A former Rutgers guy, always like to see that. So he's coming back home, and he has some experience with Joe Judge. Joe Judge is familiar with him. And we'll get to the depth chart in a little bit. I'm a little thrown off by the depth chart. I'm not sure how to read it. And again, this might be one of those vintage smoke screens, that Belichickian smoke screen, but we'll get to it in a little bit. We also bolstered our secondary further by trading for Isaac Yiadom, who will be wearing number 27. So that should be a telltale sign for you, what we're going to talk about next. But before we get to DeAndre Baker, the trade is for our 2021 7th round pick. Yiadom became a starter last season, started 8 games, played in all 16, but started 8, but he was, I guess, eventually replaced. He was originally a 3rd round pick from the Broncos in 2018. Played in 13 games his rookie season, only started 1. And word is he struggled, but he struggled because of the system he was within. So, and I think Vic Fangio has noted as much when talking about Yiadom after the trade, saying like, I guess their defense is more of a zone scheme, and Yiadom is more of a man coverage press kind of guy, which, love the sound of that. I've been advocating for that for a while, and we didn't really do that with Baker. So got some much needed depth, got some much needed veteran presence, which is what we've been begging for and asking for. And with Yiadom getting number 27, we saw the writing on the wall, and a lot of people called it out, and the Giants made it official. They released DeAndre Baker. What did John Mara have to say about all this? Quote, "The DeAndre thing was a shock. There was no indication coming out of college. I listened very closely in those draft meetings when they talk about players and their backgrounds and whatnot, and particularly when you're talking about a first-round player. There was no indication that we should be concerned about any criminal activity. That was a big disappointment." He goes on to say the DeAndre Baker thing, which it's funny. He said the DeAndre thing, the DeAndre Baker thing. The DeAndre Baker thing was just something we did not see coming. I read some stories saying there were red flags about him, but not in the sense that you would be concerned about criminal conduct at all. Obviously, it's something that's embarrassing to the organization. It's just something that we're going to have to deal with. It happens from time to time. Fortunately, 99.9% of our players are good citizens. This one was one that just we didn't see coming. It's something we're going to have to deal with. So, yeah. So someone put out a poll on Twitter asking like, who's the bigger bust, Eric Flowers or DeAndre Baker? And it was pretty split, but I think it was more like leaning towards Eric Flowers being the bigger bust, which I disagree with. I think, we didn't trade up to get Eric Flowers. We didn't trade 2 of our picks to jump back into the first. Eric Flowers gave us 1, 2, 3, 4-ish seasons. Baker couldn't even give us, he gave us 1 season, sort of. Didn't even really start all 16 games that first season. So, it's sad. I think that's the biggest, I feel like that could be the biggest blemish on Gettleman's record so far. To the one and done when you give up so much for him. Not great. So, but in terms of Isaac Yiadom, here are some opponent stats against him in 2018. Opposing quarterbacks were 20 of 34 for 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. And then the numbers don't get better in 2019. Quarterbacks were 38 of 54 for a 70.4% completion rate for 490 yards. No touchdowns, though, but no picks. So we'll get to the depth chart, but I don't hate it. You gave up a 7th round pick. You gave up a 7th round pick for what was a 3rd round pick. And who knows, in Patrick Graham's scheme, a lot of people seem to think that, obviously the coaching staff and the organization thinks that he'll be a better fit under Patrick Graham's scheme. And I have a tendency to agree. So that's a pretty huge pickup. So, the secondary, and there was also a tweet about comparing this year's secondary with last year's secondary. You, as a fan, you have to feel better about this year's secondary versus last year's. You just have to. You just look across the board and we got better. How much better is really the big question. Did we get significantly better? Just get a little bitty better. We also had signed Jalapeno, Johnny Holton, former Steelers receiver, and long snapper Tinker Carson. Jalapeno ended up declining the Giants' practice squad offer, so he's gone. Holton saw the second highest percentage of targets that were 20-plus yards downfield last season among qualified wide receivers. He also played 271 special team snaps with the Steelers last year. And I guess he might. I have to look at the depth chart again. Oh, boy. But I think Holton ended up on the practice squad. Or maybe we just used him for intelligence, Just sign him, here's your money, give us the info, get out of here. Take your clothes with you. So none of those players that we signed, I think, made the final roster. But the big news, the 2 major cuts that were really surprising to me, Ryan Connelly and Corey Coleman. The Ryan Connelly cut, I flat out don't get. And, Judge never really gave us a straightforward answer. When asked about it, he was just like, we wish him the best of luck, just wasn't a fit. Best of luck wasn't a fit. Best of luck wasn't a fit. Okay. And then but yet you were crossing your fingers and hoping that he would get through waivers so that you could sign him again to the practice squad. It's like, what? You honestly thought that dude was going to you thought he was going to make it through waivers? Dude was a starter last year and was our best linebacker. I know it's not saying a lot, but my only thought process here is that, okay, he did tear his ACL. The major knock on him before tearing the ACL was that he was slow, and that with the ACL tear, you come back, you're not going to get back to where you were in terms of speed. So he's a slow player, gets even slower. That said, I think he did pretty well in coverage. I think he got to the ball and attacked, and he made some plays in the run game. So where, I don't know. We didn't hear anything from anyone in the media, beat reporters, training camp, scrimmages. We didn't see anything about Ryan Connelly not performing well. So to me, it feels like this is not an instance of, but it's also bananas that we kept so many goddamn linebackers. We kept like 11, 12 linebackers. And you'll see when we get to the depth chart. I mean, lots and lots of linebackers. So how do you cut Connelly? Fifth round pick who's proven himself in at the highest level versus you're keeping all these like Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown, Tate Crowder, TJ Brunson. You're keeping 4 or 5 guys on the squad, on the roster, final roster, that you haven't seen them play a single NFL game, but they must have shown you something above and beyond what Ryan Connelly was giving you in practice. I don't know. I think it caught a lot of people off guard. And there are a lot of fans that saying we'll regret it. And I'm thinking to myself, it is a surprising cut. It sucks to lose him. Big time sucks to lose him because we finally had a linebacker that we thought was a little bit of a difference maker, a playmaker. So it definitely sucks, but regret it? I don't think so. I do still trust Joe Judge. I think it was a mistake. Obviously, the Vikings swoop in and claim him off waivers like the instant he was available. So he's got a new home. We'll see how he plays. Will he be an all-pro Hall of Famer? Probably not. But I could see him making a Pro Bowl, maybe 2 down the line. But yeah, that one hurt. I mean, I had him projected as a starter next to Martinez, above Mayo. Before Mayo got hurt, I had Connelly as the starting linebacker, and I couldn't have been more wrong. So, contributing to his cut was probably the fact that if we are to believe what the reporters were reporting, that Devontae Downs and the other linebackers were playing that much better than we expected. Devontae Downs, I don't think anyone projected him to be like on the roster, much less in the starting lineup. And then, when we were after the draft video that I put out, said this is a lot of linebackers. I doubt all of them make the team, but they all did. So they must have shown something or enough. It's like, do you want one guy who's strong in this area versus 4 guys? Each of them have their own strength that match up well with a certain scenario that you encounter. I talked about it before. Like, okay, we'll use on passing downs, we'll use Crowder because he's a coverage guy. On running downs, it's Brunson. On, downs gives you this. On this, in this type of down and distance. I don't know. I completely disagree with it. I think if you don't think Connelly's your starter, you don't cut him. It's not like, he's in his second fucking year. It's not like he comes with a huge bloated contract, I don't think. As a 5th rounder, I don't think he's signing a massive contract. So it wasn't a contract. It couldn't have been a contract thing. He's not over the hill. He's in his 2nd year. All signs pointed that he was fully recovered from the ACL thing. So something else is going on here. And I think maybe because, was he a Shermer guy? Or, Connelly was a Betcher preference. Betcher really liked him. And so that's why he was drafted. And he's not really a Judge. Maybe we're overthinking this. And it really is Joe Judge thinks this guy does not fit within our scheme. Good player, doesn't fit. Maybe he is just telling the truth. But to think that he was going to get through waivers and we were going to sign him to the practice squad is bananas. Why not just sign him to the practice squad? The fuck was that about? I don't know. And then Corey Coleman was the other cut. Again, I not as disappointed with this as it was with Connelly. Coleman also had an ACL tear, probably lost a step, was not as explosive or as fast, but still, dude was projected to be the number 4 receiver. Was supposed to be our deep threat. Was supposed to be a kick returner or punt returner, and all that's out the window. So it sucks. I really wanted Coleman to excel with the Giants because you saw everything he went through. It was such a redemption story, comeback player of the year type material, cut from the Browns, picked up by the Bills and released, picked up by the Pats and released, picked up by the Giants. And I thought, okay, I guess third time's a charm, something like that. This is your time to shine. And fuck, you wonder like what would have happened if he didn't tear his ACL last year, what kind of numbers he would have put up and how he would have helped out. So that's kind of a blow. The dude that they got, it's kind of like he was on the roster and then all the other cuts were made and players were placed on waivers, and the Giants made their signings on waivers. And so they had to make cuts. And so the guy that they got, is supposed, and I guess in the Giants' eyes, is a better deep threat than Corey Coleman. I think his name is Damian Ratley. Yeah, Damian Ratley. So interesting. Very interesting. I don't think he got a ton of playing time, but in the playing time he did, he fared fairly well. So I wish them the best, man. I think that sucks. We also placed David Sills on IR with a broken foot. That sucks because he seemed like he was going to be a big target and really help us out in the red zone at least. So that kind of leaves a hole there. I mean, it was in a span of 20. I mean, it's so odd to me that for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, almost months, you had a sense of like what our team is going to look like. And in a span of 24 to 48 hours, it almost not got completely flipped on its head. I'm not going to say that, but holy shit. Some pretty significant updates to the roster and to the depth chart. But that stinks about David Sills. Heard a lot of good things about him coming out of camp. Looked like he was probably going to be in the mix. A wide receiver, and now we have a dude named Damian Ratley, which I know next to nothing about. But Judge has a vision. He's on Twitter now too, which is crazy. He has a vision, and he's sticking to it, and he seems pretty decisive. He knows what he wants. He discusses with his coaching staff, and he trusts their judgment. So you got to trust him. It's crazy how he's earned my trust. He's earned my trust. I haven't seen one game from him yet. But yet, Shermer, it's just like, yeah, it just doesn't inspire confidence, but Judge does. So Pro Football Focus predicted every NFL team's 2020 breakout player. And ours is Julian Love. Love is as versatile a secondary player as they come. He didn't see substantial action as a rookie in 2019 till week 12, which is still like, what are you doing? But he played well, logging over 75 snaps in the box, in the slot, and at deep safety. Produced a 70.5 grade in that span, ranking 26 among qualifying safeties. He's likely to stick at safety to start with, but he might also be slotted in at cornerback. He was one of the best cornerbacks at Notre Dame. Fourth highest graded corner in the FBS on the outside, tied for 8th in forced incompletions. Size is concerning, not exactly blazing speed, but incredibly smooth athlete with ball skills. Should have a decent year too. So, spoiler alert, he's listed as the starting free safety on the depth chart. PFF also had put out a list of the most impressive rookie camp performances, and fellow corner Darnay Holmes made the list. Holmes is probably the most productive player in the entire defensive backfield during training camp, according to Giants.com's John Schmilk. He's fell to the 4th round, but he's a top slot corner option, ranked 86th on PFF's draft board. He's 78.7 coverage grade, showed what he's truly capable of during his sophomore year. So, if those two with Yiadom and Ryan and Baker out of the picture don't get you a little more excited or at least a little more content with our secondary, I don't know what to tell you. I feel good about our secondary. I mean, I feel better about our secondary than I did last year. And it's just a question of, and maybe this is intentional by the coaching staff, but once we get to the depth chart and you see what they're doing there, but it seems like it's very much, you have options. Much like the Mets have a lot of options with their infield, the Giants have a lot of options in the secondary. So I saw this kind of late in the day yesterday. Damon Harrison on leaving the Giants. It's one of the biggest regrets in my life. Oh, it was one of the 3 biggest regrets in his life. So Snacks hated how things ended with the Giants. He said those who are gone from the 2018 Giants include head coach. Okay, so he was talking about how it's one of the biggest regrets, and it's not due to Mara or Gettleman or, front office ownership, anything like that. It had to do with, he didn't mention names, but he said they're no longer with the team, which would indicate, Pat Shurmur, James Betcher, and defensive line coach Gary Emanuel. So those 3 dickheads made Snacks want to pack up and hit the road. So thanks for that. Because could you imagine if we still had Damon Harrison? And I know he's not performing quite at the same level, but he's still one of the, I'd say, top-tier interior defensive linemen. Do we trade for Leonard Williams? Probably not, because then you have Harrison, Tomlinson, Hill, Lawrence. So you've now got back 2 of those draft picks they had to give up for Leonard Williams. You probably didn't have to place this ridiculous franchise tag on Leonard Williams, $16 million, I think it is. And now you're not stuck in a position, if you're Gettleman, where you have to try and finagle some kind of wild, crazy deal to keep him around to justify that trade. So, man, how the dominoes fall. It is it is interesting to watch. And also very frustrating. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think just how things were handled really from 2015 on. Should the Giants, let's play Captain Hindsight for a little bit. Now that we have 20/20 vision on the past, let's play a little, even though you should really have a growth mindset and focus on the present and be more mindful in the present. That's what I've been told. I like looking at the past and opening up old wounds. That's what I do. And right now we're going to look at 2015 on. Say we don't fire Coughlin. He sticks around. Maybe we lose McAdoo. That kind of stinks. All right. Given the kind of offensive output that we had in 2014, 2015, the potential of firepower that we had under McAdoo's watch. Yeah, it hurts to lose McAdoo, but knowing what we know now, and who knows if McAdoo had more trust placed in his thought process, maybe we'd have Patrick Mahomes now. There's a lot of strands you can go on, a lot of threads that you can go on about how the Giants could have done better and would have done better had they just let some things happen. One thing is you keep Coughlin, but then you still spend out the ass for all those free agents, Jackrabbit, OV, and Snacks. With Coughlin at the helm, do they go and do they lose in the playoffs that first round, or do they go on a run and possibly make the Super Bowl? I don't know. Probably. Maybe. So if Coughlin sticks around and McAdoo leaves, that means that, and we make a deep run in the 2016 playoffs, say the 2017 shit still happens and all of our receivers are murdered on the field as they were. McAdoo, I don't think, knew how to handle the situation or probably didn't respond to it the right way. Would Coughlin have? Probably. So then you don't have the disgruntled Eli Apple and Jackrabbit and DRC, and you don't have a lot of these guys. There's turmoil in the clubhouse. I don't know if you have that with Coughlin as head coach. 2018 comes around and you don't have to fire Ben McAdoo. But yet again, Jerry Reese is still the GM. How does that play out? You don't bring in Shermer and Betcher and all that jazz, which means Snacks and all them probably stick around. Is Odell Beckham Jr. still a Giant? I mean, we could get it. We could get into it if you want to. But really, we're still recovering from what happened after the 2015 season, in my mind. We are still 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 5 years after the goddamn fact. We're still reeling after Tom Coughlin was fired. And I was one of the people that wanted him out. I thought that he lost control of the team. He didn't have control of the team. Meanwhile, it wasn't, I mean, you know, you can point fingers all you want and say who's responsible for what. But I will say this. Shit, man, if you go on that free agent spend that we did in 2016 and you give that kind of talent to Tom Coughlin, you know what I mean? And then who knows? And then, you know, so who knows what happens? But just saying, you know, our defenses were pretty goddamn awful from 2013, 2014, 2015. 2013, they were okay in the second half. 2014, they stunk. 2015, they stunk. And then they were refortified in 2016. So imagine Tom Coughlin with a capable defense. Whoa. Imagine how Eli continues to play with Tom Coughlin, still acting father figure. I mean, we saw Eli cry when Coughlin resigned or retired, quote unquote. So, you know, I felt it was time for him to move on because I thought he lost control. You know, he didn't have the same kind of control, but it really came down to a talent type thing. It really did on defense, on the defensive side of the ball. So, and we're still reeling from it, recovering from it. But something to think about. It's like, I mean, I don't know that you can necessarily, I mean, you can blame Shermer and Betcher and whatnot, but they were kind of forced into a very turbulent situation. As is Joe Judge, and I think Joe Judge is handling it phenomenally. So how does Daniel Jones compare with Patrick Mahomes? Saw this tweet. The last 7 games played in 2019. So, I mean, obviously we're cherry picking data here, but it's still nice to look at. Jones had 1,883 passing yards. Mahomes, 1,851 passing yards. Jones had 18 touchdowns and 5 picks. Mahomes had 11 touchdowns and 4 picks. Jones, 95.4 passer rating. Mahomes, 97.6 passer rating. Jones, 118th average draft position in the 2020 fantasy football draft season. Mahomes was 7th. So, and I think you saw that, or you heard about it as people were starting to have their fantasy football drafts leading up to week 1. Was like, don't sleep on Daniel Jones, that he can put up some pretty decent numbers. And who knows, you know, this could be a breakout year for him. I think it will be a breakout year for him. As long as as long as the offense stays healthy. You can't have 2 of your top receivers go down and then a lineman go down and expect him to put up the same kind of numbers. So with that in mind, let's take a look at this damn depth chart, okay? This is the depth chart week 1 against the Steelers. You can read into it as you will, as you may. I think, you know, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it's not as concrete or set in stone as this kind of structured layout presents it to be. Offense, obviously, I think you can probably put it in the books. Like, this is what we're going to get. But so offense, we'll start with offense. Obviously, Shep at 1 wide receiver position, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton at the other 2. It looks like Damian Ratley will be the number 4. And then you have CJ Board as the number 5, which is a little scary because Ratley and Board just joined. I mean, Ratley just joined like last week and Board joined like a couple weeks ago. So it's kind of makes me a little uneasy that with Golden Tate's hamstring being an issue now, and Shepard being concussion prone, and Slayton, he missed a bunch of games beginning of the season with hamstring, that if any of them go down, we're now inserting a guy who's like still very new and fresh to the playbook and to the system. So it's kind of scary. Starting 10 end, Evan Ingram, obviously, with Caden Smith backing up. And then we have Levine Toilolo and Eric Tomlinson. Although I don't know that, is Tomlinson back on? Okay, I guess he is back on. So I'm interested. So even though this is how we've been told that there's going to be a lot more 2 tight end sets with Jason Garrett as OC. So, it's almost like Ingram is, I almost want to say that Ingram is like the 4th wide receiver. And really it's going to, if we do two tight end sets, Ingram is going to be either kind of like the wing back slot receiver. I don't think he's going to be lined up next to the tackle. He's going to be off the line of scrimmage. So I would think that you'd see a lot of like Caden Smith and Levine Toilolo with their hand down. Right tackle's Cameron Fleming with Matt Peart backing him up. Right guard Kevin Zeitler. Shane Lemieux is backing up as the backup guard on the right and left side. Nick Gates, alpha male, is our starting center. Spencer Pulley, after Jalapio decided to decline the practice squad offer, we got Pulley as the backup center. Hernandez at left guard. Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Jackson Barton is listed as the backup left tackle. I don't know anything about that dude. But I know that he was kind of a late signing. I believe it was after the initial cuts were made to the 53, we signed him. But Saquon starting running back, Deion Lewis and Gallman backing him up. Elijah Penny is our starting fullback. And then you have Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback and Colt McCoy as our backup, with Cooper Rush on the practice squad. R.I.P. Alex Tenney. So the defense is where it gets a little tricky and gets super, because this depth chart, it's not as like regimented and rigid, I think, as the offense. It's very fluid. It's very non-binary. It's very gender fluid on the defensive side of the ball. It depends. There's going to be a lot of different packages, and a lot of different arrangements, setups, schemes. So I don't think you can read. You can, like, if you're an opposing offense, I don't think you look at this and say, okay, that's the guy we're going to line up against every down. So strong side linebacker Lorenzo Carter with Marcus Golden and Carter Coughlin backing him up. Yeah, I mean, I think they're really going to use Marcus Golden as strictly a pass rusher, and same goes with Carter Coughlin. I think those will be, on definitive pass situations, third, long, bring in Golden and Coughlin and just pin their ears back and let them have at it. Defensive end Dexter Lawrence II with RJ McIntosh backing him up. And middle linebacker, you have Blake Martinez, or Captain Blake Martinez, with Tate Crowder behind him. At nose tackle, you have Dalvin Tomlinson with Austin Johnson, who we signed from the Titans in the offseason, backing him up. At the will linebacker, you have Devontae Downs. The weak inside linebacker. The will. Yeah, Devontae Downs. Which, boy, that came out of nowhere. So, yeah, very interesting to see him as a starter. I don't think a lot of people had that. I mean, there was, like I said, there was a lot of talk about him, like, opening some eyes in camp, but they say that about a lot of players, and they don't end up being our starter. And then TJ Brunson will back him up. At the other D tackle spot, you have Leonard Williams with BJ Hill being the backup. O'Shane Zimenez is on the weak outside linebacker position starter. Fackrell will back him up with Cam Brown backing him up. So, I mean, you can see how many friggin' linebackers we're carrying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yowza. It's a lot of linebackers. So, I guess, the thought process is Fackrell's a free agent. This is a kind of a make or break year for Carter. Golden is a kind of a 1 year, one and done free agent. Let's see what we can get out of him in terms of the pass rush. And Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin are your developmental guys, along with Crowder and Brunson. So interesting. I thought that Coughlin and Brown would be kind of on the cusp, on the bubble. And I thought that we would have to choose between the two. Instead, we kept both. So, Judge comes from a special teams background. So if he sees that you have potential on special teams, he's going to keep you on the 53. But you can see already, like, we're keeping a lot more guys on defense than we are offense. So left corner, James Bradbury, obviously. Backing him up is Darnay Holmes and Brandon Williams. Strong safeties, Jabril Peppers with Nate Ebner, special teams captain. Well, they're both special teams captains, which is interesting. Jabril Peppers and Nate Ebner. Free safety starters, Julian Love, as I mentioned. Backing him up is Logan Ryan and then Adrian Colbert. Colbert? Yeah, maybe. Who we picked up, I believe, with Damian Ratley after the initial 53-man cut downs were made. And then our starting right cornerback, Corey Ballantyne, when backing him up is Isaac Yiadom. So, I mean, I feel pretty good about our defense. I feel pretty good. I'm interested to see what Devontae Downs can do. If all the hype that he got, and this is where I would, even though preseason can be a mixed bag and it's mostly boring, but sometimes there's a standout player, I would have loved to see Devontae Downs in action in the preseason. And Ballantyne, I think that's a case of Isaac Yiadom is so new to just the organization, to the system, that they probably want to give him a couple weeks, and they feel like Ballantyne won't be as detrimental to us as possible. But I would have to think that they're going to target Ballantyne. But you're looking at probably Holmes is the starting slot corner, I believe, or is it Logan Ryan? And those are the three that I'm most interested in the secondary: Darnay Holmes, Julian Love, and Logan Ryan. Because it's pretty obvious that Yiadom is going to be strictly on the outside, but are we going to see a lot of three safety sets, which I know that there was some talk about it. We've had success with it in the past. So are they going to bring that back where, maybe Ryan's back, Love is up, maybe Peppers is up, Ryan and Love are back. I like that dynamic, the ability to mix it up and give different looks and confuse offenses. So just would have loved for Connelly to be a part of that. And then special teams, you have the long snapper, Casey Kreider, Riley Dixon, who as much as the scrimmages suck to watch, it was still kind of cool seeing them experiment a little bit. So on one punt, Riley Dixon took it and fired a beautiful pass to the gunner for a first down. So I like how they did not exclude that from the director's cut of this freaking weirdly filmed scrimmage where there's all these weird angles and condensed and we don't see everything and it's half speed. But if that's that, I just like putting that in the mind of the opposing special teams coach. We have that potential, so be on the lookout. We'll at least cut down on block punts, hopefully. And Golden Tate is listed as our starting punt returner with Jabril Peppers and Sterling Shepard and Slayton as the backups there. Darnay Holmes and Darius Slayton will be our kickoff returners, with Ballantyne, CJ Borden, Dion Lewis also potentially being in the mix. And Greg Minot is our starting kicker. So there you have it. There's our depth chart. So how do we match up against these Pittsburgh Steelers? I guess it's a little bit of a hot take. I think Big Ben is going to suck this year. I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to stink out loud to the point where he's going to be benched, a la what happened to Eli in 2019 last year. Not to say that was Eli's fault, but you could tell the offense does not operate at the same level with Eli as they do with Daniel Jones. And I think that's going to happen with the Big Ben. I just don't. I think he's past his prime. I think he's seen his best years are behind him. And all this talk about how Juju is so happy Big Ben's back, and everyone's so happy he's back, and they're really excited by what he brings, and blah blah blah. Nope, disagree. I mean I have nothing to lean on, no evidence, no facts, no data, nothing. Didn't see him play a single snap this offseason, training camp, whatever. I just got a hunch. It's intuition, my folks, my friends. I think he is going to have a shit year. And I think you're going to see that Monday night. I think he's going to have an awful game. And we're going to open some eyes, come away with a win. We're going to steal a win, you guys. We're going to steal a win from the Steelers. That's what I think. It's not going to be easy. Okay, so the defense is probably going to have a fair amount of success and luck against Big Ben. On the flip side of the ball, I think that our offense is it's not going to look great against the Steelers defense. The Steelers have like a top 3 defense, if not the top defense in the NFL. Tremendous pass rush. I mean, all around. You got TJ Watt. You got Cameron Hayward just re-signed an extension. I mean, you just have it's a ferocious, tenacious defense. Tenacious D, shout out. And with an offensive line that didn't get to see a ton of game action, you got a rookie starting a left tackle. You have a kind of borderline starter at the right tackle position with a newly minted center who hasn't really played that position that much. You're going to see a lot of mishaps. I mean, I'm if I had to put it over under 4 sacks, I would say over. You're looking at 5 sacks. But that said, the offense is still going to show some fight, I believe. And I think we're going to cover the spread. I think the spread is like 5.5. Steelers are favored by 5.5. I think we'll cover that. And we could steal away a victory here. I'm really confident of that. Even though the Pittsburgh defense is top notch, the Pittsburgh offense is kind of banged up. I think their starting guard, something like that, opted out or is injured. So I think the Steelers offense is not exactly where people think it is, but I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to be fairly dominant, at least in the first half, So it'll be a low-scoring affair in the first half. I believe we'll probably exchange a couple field goals, maybe see a touchdown from Pittsburgh, and then the Giants' offense will come around in the second half. I think Jason Garrett will put together some interesting stuff in the second half, and we'll make it competitive and close and possibly sneak away a victory. Graham Gano, last second, 63-yard field goal for the win. Holy shit. No. Maybe like a 40-yard field goal for the win. Between 40 and 50 yards. But, yeah, I think, you can look at the schedule and you could say, you could get a little rattled by it. But I think Joe Judge, and I kind of skipped this earlier on. I had a note here, but, the guys did not come out firing at Thursday morning's practice, I think it was, and he made them restart. He said, we're starting over. Start it from step 1. Let's go back to position 1 and start it up. Let's run it again. Brought the team together, said didn't like the enthusiasm, didn't like the attitude, didn't like the energy, and, was like, let's do better. And what I love is that you have captains, Saquon Barkley and Blake Martinez, coming and supporting their coach and saying, we support that decision. Full hand up, honest to God, we did not come out looking our best and feeling our best. And he made us restart, and it was the right move to make. So good. It just feels good. I know that, sucks losing McKinney, sucks losing Mayo, sucks losing Connelly, sucks losing Coleman. But we have made some pretty good moves that if we can just stay healthy, stay healthy, we're looking at possibly a wild card. Whoa. And I'll finish off by saying this. The Giants released their uniform schedule. Not a whole lot of surprises here. They will be wearing people call them the color rush uniforms. They're not I don't think they are the color rush uniforms because they're basically our away uniform from, the 80s and 90s. It's just, why we keep wearing the away uniforms from the 80s and 90s at home, I'll never understand. Just wear, and this is what caught me off guard, is the headline says the Giants will wear their Super Bowl 25 era classics versus the Buccaneers. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, well, we wear, like in Super Bowl 25, we wore our home blue jerseys. So we're going to wear the old school from the 1990 Giants uniforms against the Bucks at home. Like that's going to be huge. And nope, it's the damn all whites again. I mean, yes, they look great. We just don't win in them. I mean, look at the record dating back to 2016. We just do not win in those uniforms. So would have liked to see the blues, but we're going to get the whites. So that's the Giants. I guess I'll give my little spiel about 9/11 since it is 9/11. I have now been alive long enough to live the first half of my life pre 9/11 and then the second half of my life post 9/11. I was about 2 months away from turning 21 when 9/11 happened, and was asleep, resting, dreaming, probably sleeping off a hangover. The Giants had lost the night before on Monday Night Football to the Broncos, and what was a game that could have been winnable and was the beginning of a very long and frustrating season. But it was my senior year in college. I had not turned 21 yet. I was on the third floor of my fraternity house in my bed, resting easy, when my phone rang. It was not my cell phone. I don't even know if I had a cell phone at that point. So got a ring on the landline phone. I woke up and was just super foggy and hazy. And my mom immediately was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah. What the hell's going on?" I thought I was still dreaming. And she was like, are you awake? Like, you need to wake up. Are you okay? Are you safe? Like, turn on the TV. And I was like, what is going on? I turn on the TV and turn on the news. And of course it was the one of the Twin Towers was smoking, and she was like, a plane has crashed into the Twin Towers. They think it might be they're not sure what's happening. And then I was like, oh my God, that sucks. And then all of a sudden, as I'm watching, the second one, the second plane hits the second tower. And that's when I was like, whoa, like, holy shit. And so that's when she said, you need to make sure you're safe. And it was just really panicking, but also kind of measured, like, there might be others. And I think Baltimore, it might later come out that Baltimore was a target, because I know that DC was a target and the Pentagon got hit, but also there was one that got rerouted and it crashed, I think in PA, outside of Pittsburgh maybe. But I think Baltimore was also on the list of targets. So just crazy. We're now, it's almost been 20 years. It's the 19th anniversary this year. And the fact that I've been alive 20 years before it happened and 20 years after it happened, and seeing how different the world has become. And, a lot of people were commenting on Twitter, like, we've given, especially with what's going on with the coronavirus and the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, like, now you throw 9/11 into the mix and thinking back about what life was like before 9/11 and then after, and thinking about all the quote unquote like civil liberties we've given up, or the freedoms that we've given up for the sake of security. But yet there are some people that, hold 9/11 up and say we need to do these things in order to bolster national security, but then yet refuse to wear a mask for coronavirus. Oh, God. Life is complicated. So it's just people like to pick and choose. I mean, I'm not excluded from that statement. We pick and choose. We're human. We have bias. And so it's like, well, okay, you can detain me and search me and, based on profiling, but you can't make me wear a mask to limit the number of deaths, which, someone else was saying that the number of deaths from coronavirus is like per day is X amount of times more than we lost in that one day. But you can't, it's not a good way to think. Don't think that way. It's just not, you're not comparing apples to apples. So, but horrific day. And yeah, that's the show. Sorry to end on such a down note, but I thought, everyone has their 9/11 story. Mine's not anything crazy, but it was surreal. I will say that. Just watching the TV and not being able to comprehend what was happening, not knowing what was going to happen next. And, it just got worse and worse and worse. It was nuts. So, and I think I saw another tweet that was more people have died from the ailments, side effects of 9/11 than actually died. Way more have died post 9/11 from 9/11 illnesses suffered than those that actually perished on the day of. So, there's still lasting effects. I think Jon Stewart, say what you will about Jon Stewart, but he's been pushing to get a lot of those people that have been suffering from the ailments, illnesses, symptoms, whatever that accompany 9/11 to get them some kind of relief. Because it's people say never forget, but it seems like we've forgotten about a lot of those people. And it's still affecting people, which is nuts 20 years later. So I'm one of the fortunate ones. I'm lucky that I was not impacted or affected. I didn't lose anyone. I did go to college with a couple of people that lost their parents. So I heard a story about a person and maybe his wife or girlfriend who had been working in the city who saw that happening, left the city and never went back. So, and we rebounded, So I guess that's the silver lining. That's a positive that you can take out of everything is that, we took a pretty serious punch to the gut and we still were able to bounce back. And, you'll have people on trying to politicize it and on every side saying this and that. But, the main takeaway in the message here is we're going to persevere, right? That's the main takeaway. We'll persevere. Stick together. United we stand. Persevere. That's my propaganda for the day. All right. Thanks for listening to my bullshit. Maybe we'll throw in some really funny life stories that I accumulated over the past 14 days. But there's an embargo, I have to quarantine my stories until they're safe enough to share with you to prevent infection. Jesus Christ. Okay, that's the show. Adios, muchachos.